I must say a pleasant good morning to NTA leader, former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith. A pleasant good morning to you, sir.
Hi, good morning to you and to your many listeners. Good morning.
Nice. This morning we call, this morning, Lennox Smith, you go ahead, my brother. Let him know why we call him.
Griffith, we have woken up to the news that the talks with the opposition, the overture made by the Prime Minister himself may well be scuttled because there was the awaiting of a response from Kamala Prasad-Bissessar. The usual, of course, obfuscation talk. Whereas, of course, on the other hand, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar was waiting for a response from the government as to whether or not Dr. Rowley himself will be present. And we suspect that your involvement may be the reason why the government is now reneging and rescinding, whether directly or indirectly, that overture that they would have made consequential of the concern expressed by the president at the opening of Parliament recently. We just want to get your comment on it and maybe to tell us what some of your ideas for addressing the unrelenting scourge that is crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago today.
Yes, sure. Good morning to all again. Well, the only solution, the only option is to have the government removed democratically. They are clueless. They do not know what to do. They are vindictive. They are very political, and they are not patriots. They do not see the bigger picture. So, in contrast to what you just said about based on the pleas by Her Excellency the President, that is not true. This started by myself and Kamala Prasad-Bissessar. So when you listen to certain media houses who seem to be politically affiliated or because they need to get funding and sponsorship from the government, the President was not the one who did the initial overture. It was myself and also Kamala Prasad-Bissessar several months before. We recall Keith Rowley went in a political meeting in Toko and he said, no way, I have no intention. And then some of the PNM puppets, like, you know, those train seals when you go to SeaWorld in Orlando, started clapping, ooh, and they started clapping there like the seals in agreement to what he said. So in other words, they said to themselves as citizens, if it increases the chance of my wife being killed, my son being kidnapped, my daughter being raped, I don't care. Once Keith Rowley says he doesn't want to speak to them, we agree with that. And they started applauding. That is where we have reached to in this country. So initially, as I said, the overture and the concept of looking at the bigger picture and putting country first had to do with Kamala Prasad-Bissessar and Gary Griffith informing and asking the government, look, we are here to assist you. We are here. Let us circle the wagons. The enemy are not political opponents. The enemy are those who try to deprive the average citizen or the law-abiding citizen, I should say, of their fundamental rights of safety and security. That being said, what Keith Rowley has now done, he has realized that this has political implications because you're seeing one side saying, look, let us help you. And he is now realizing if it is I continue to reject it, I am going to lose that floating vote. Those 150,000 voters who would have been ONR, NAR, COP, NTA, people who are not blindly supportive of any of the main political parties. And that is the group that usually decides who gets in government. So he played a doosra, he bowled a ball there, trying to say, okay, well, let's meet. And just to clarify to the public, in local parlance, Keith Rowley, the Attorney General is fast and out of place. You as the Prime Minister submit correspondence to the leader of the opposition. There's a chain of command, political leader to political leader, Prime Minister to opposition leader. All of a sudden, the Attorney General jumps in there and fast and out of place has the audacity to give the leader of the opposition a deadline. Who are you? You will know you are not a political leader. Know your place. You weren't even voted. You're not even a member of parliament being elected. You were selected. So you have to start with the Attorney General is out of place, one. Two, he's also out of place to give the opposition leader a deadline. So if she decides to reply the day after, what you're going to do? Shut it down? And the third, the Keith Rowley spends more time in his last 8 years as Prime Minister boasting that he's the chair of the National Security Council. Every time he speaks as the chair of the National Security Council, as the chair of the National Security Council, he doesn't even know what it means. He's so clueless about the role and function. And now The one time you're supposed to show your position of authority, to show that, listen, I am here as a patriot, as the chair of the National Security Council. We want to meet with the opposition. Let us meet. He is so lazy, so clueless, so does not care. He's not even part of the meeting. So that's number 3. Number 4, the audacity of you to state, well, we will have 5 people and you will have 4. Hello, Keith Rowley. This is something we're trying to get 2 groups together to try to circle the wagons to come up with the best solutions to save lives. But automatically you become political by trying to say that we must have 5 and you must have 4. So if anything comes to a vote, we will have the deciding factor. And then 5, he then has the audacity to feel people are so stupid. You already set the schedule and say that this is about legislative agendas. This is not a subcommittee of parliament by stating that all we are going to speak about are bills. Number 6, he feels that people are so stupid. So you come up with 10 bills, and if we go to that meeting and the opposition agrees to 9 and doesn't support 1, he is then going to say it is because of that bill that they didn't support that is causing crime to increase. Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could see through the manipulation, the deceit of what Keith Rowley and the PNM is trying to do pertaining to these crime talks. It is not genuine. It is not going to be fruitful if they start off with such a biased agenda. And again, it is hoped that the court of public opinion finds the PNM and Keith Rowley guilty for neglecting their role and function to secure citizens of this country by deliberately seeing something that could be fruitful, that could be beneficial, and has turned it into a political agenda deliberately designed to try to affect the opposition, and in the hope that the PNM could benefit from it.
Wow.
I think there's nothing more pellucid than that, but there's another maze that I want you to unravel. One, the current Minister of National Security talks about 18%, of course, the detection rate or non-detection rate, as the case may be. Then, of course, you have, of course, a number of fines, and he spoke about guns being used. I mean, there's nothing new, but being used as the weapon of choice, but said it in the context as if it is legal arms as opposed to illegal arms. And then, of course, we have the situation of this international report that says that Trinidad and Tobago is most violent, 6th violent country in the world. So I've given you a matrix, which I hope you can unravel, and to give us your thoughts as to some of the remedies that is required, including, of course, in that maze is the setting on leave for a very extended period, some what I consider to be well-known elements of the police service at this time, a decision made by this, of course, Commissioner of Police.
Well, okay. Well, let me deal with the last point first. It is the right of the Commissioner of Police to choose the deciding factor as the person's going on leave, because there is an administrative process that you should not. There is going to be some degree of concern when it is that persons, and it is not good in any aspect of human resource when it is that persons will be have backdated 2 and 3 years outstanding leave, and it is not appropriate. Even the present Commissioner of Police, she had over 2 years leave, and she went on leave whilst I was Commissioner of Police. It is not good. It gives the impression that you are so you're so brilliant, you're so perfect that nobody could replace you. So we can't afford to remove you or to let you go. So for 10, 15 years, you never went on leave. Having said that, my only concern, however, is just in August, I remember the Commissioner of Police said there was a no-leave period. Nobody must go on leave because of the crime situation. I don't know what has changed over the last 2 months that persons can now go on 2 and 3 years leave. So that, again, only the Commissioner of Police can answer that. I wouldn't want to answer that on behalf of her. As it pertains to the matter with Fitzgerald Hines, he continues to show he's the dumbest, most clueless, not just Minister of National Security, but Minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago's parliament and politics. The man is totally lost. He actually went on a TTT station, which, by the way, to Trinidad and Tobago, please understand, TTT is one where they do not allow persons who are not in government to be interviewed. I was actually blacklisted when it is I formed a political party. So anybody who wants to sponsor, anybody who wants to turn on to TTT, understand that is a PNM station designed specifically only for those persons who are affiliated to the People's National Movement. So, and that is being paid and funded by taxpayers, by the way. And that again is just the opposite of what democracy is about. So you have taxpayers, law-abiding citizens who may not be affiliated to the government, but are paying taxes to maintain a media house that only promotes interviews by the government. And that was, and the reason I'm saying that recently, Fitzgerald Hines was on one, and the man is a blatant liar. Because he lied to the country and said that he never asked a commissioner of police to get firearms for persons closely affiliated to him. He lied to the country. He then lied recently when he said that the United Nations has banned 556 and 762 from police and militaries around the world. That is a lie. Every single military in the world has 556, and most of them have 762. Then he lied and said that that our law enforcement agencies do not use 762 and 556. How could you be the Minister of National Security and not know that the majority of ammunition by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is 556 and 762, and the majority of the ammunition by the police service as it pertains to automatic weapons is 556. So he's a blatant liar. And then he lied to the point where he tried again in his desperate attempt to go after political opponents, lied to the country to state that that I, as a commissioner of police, allow persons to have semi-automatic weapons, and then brought in component parts to turn the semi-automatic weapons into automatic. The man is such a dunce. Anybody who does that would have broken the law. If a commissioner of police would have done that, they would have broken the law. But Fitzgerald Hines is a blatant liar. And that is what he does. And the same way that Keith Rowley, Blissy Prasad, Stanley John, all of them have been in court with me and they are losing and they will all lose their cases. He will be in court as well to answer that, because you have lied to the country to give the impression that law-abiding citizens who had FULs changed their weapons from semi-automatic to automatic. That if anybody does that, they would have broken the law. So I challenge Fitzgerald Hines, name one person who would have done that. Because if you know, that person would have broken the law. So you are a blatant liar. But this is what the government has done. They have spent all of their time and resources trying to lie to the country in some big agenda. Remember the Stanley John report, a massive, well-oiled criminal industry. Stanley John, you joker. After 2 years, all of this investigation, not one senior police officer, not one firearm dealer, not one FUL holder has even been arrested for anything pertaining to corruption with legal firearms. So this was all up. This is typical of PNM. You see the same lie over and over, hope that people believe it. The only people who are going to believe it is the 150,000 who, if Keith Rowley decides to do whatever he wants, they're going to vote for him blindly. That 150,000, you only have one vote. Thankfully, the floating voters understand. They understand a government that is deceitful, that is corrupt, that is manipulated, that it continues to have an agenda to divide the country. So because this government has spent all of their time putting focus on legal firearms, again, 99.9% of the murders committed by firearms over the last 10 years have been by illegal firearms. And they have not done one thing, to put any effort. Every time they speak is about legal firearms. Yet, however, one of the most senior office holders in the country was harassing the commissioner of police to get a firearm dealership license for his friend in Tobago so that he could sell hundreds of firearms. Yet you stand up on a platform pontificating and boasting that I am concerned about law-abiding citizens having legal firearms. It gives people to wonder, whose side of the fence is the government on? Who are you trying to protect? Is it the law-abiding citizens or the criminals? Because, as I said, they have done nothing to curb the problems of illegal firearms entering the country. All they speak about is legal firearms, as if there's a concern that law-abiding citizens having something to defend themselves because of the state's inability to protect them becomes a concern because it may affect the criminal elements in this country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gary Griffith. Thank you so much. But before you go, because again, you are also the political leader of the NTA, and I just want to hear, because we just hear from ex-commissioner this, and not only that, a layman, you are really and truly a down-to-earth fella. But in your political hat, I'm seeing here in the newspapers, the Express, Education Ministry, PS transfer, right? Besides that, I'm also seeing the reason for resigning to be known after he returns from leave. Right? The beginning of the papers here state that the permanent secretary, PS, in the Ministry of Education, that is Dasby Dolly's ministry. That is the lady, that's not you, that me. That's the one who, whenever Rowley having interviews or press conference out to anybody. She just watch he the most, boy. She just watch young this man with deep respect. I don't know what kind of respect is that, right? but but the papers also indicate, sources indicate Myers, right, which is Kurt Myers, and the education minister, Miss Dolly, did not have a good relationship. You want to put in anything on that? What's your thoughts on the point here?
Well, listening to Keith Rowley, he has been doing and saying a lot to try to change our democracy. I mean, even things such as a service commission, he wants to remove that, to have possible tribunals, to have one person and one person alone try to make decisions. This country, our democratic rights, our democracy is slowly being eroded. This is what I continue to call the democratic dictatorship. It is a democracy, but it's being led. And again, when one man and one man alone can handpick a president, virtually handpick a chief justice, the president, who will then handpick independent senators, all members of service commissions who will be appointed by a president who is appointed by that one man. He appoints the chief of defense staff, he appoints the commissioner of police, he appoints the director of the SSA, who are the three people who can intercept your phones and have the full control of law enforcement major agencies. That is a sign of democratic dictatorship. So what we are seeing here, don't be surprised that there's been some now degree of political manipulation even into the process of persons who are permanent secretaries. Because even as a permanent secretary, you're not supposed to be involved in the politics. But if it is that permanent secretaries may stand firm on certain things that will be incorrect, and then again, politicians realize you are stepping on my toes, you need to know your place. And those persons are now being affected. It again continues to show the slow erosion of this country's democracy.
Yeah, but we must be also honest and fair, because I also reading in it, Mr. Gary Griffith, former police commissioner. I also reading it here. I'm trying to get back there quick, whereby that is the power under the Constitution. The Prime Minister have that kind of power, because the main permanent secretary, or the chief permanent secretary, is his own. So the Constitution did give him the power to be able to do such and to make those type of recommendations. So
of course, yeah, because remember, he had any public, so that person is in the office of the Prime Minister. A Prime Minister could call him in, drop 2-3 whispers, and then that's it. Bam, shifts are made. So again, it shows that the democracy that we speak about, it is slowly being eroded, and it is all because of the present government. Their concept is not to have. I mean, look what is happening. They try to launch investigations. They try to launch investigations about firearms. What this government does, they handpick people, pay them big money, let them do investigations or audits, whatever you call it. By you paying the people, you could get them to probably put exactly what you want, and then the report is full of, it is reported, it is rumored, and we have heard. And then they try to take the reports and go into parliament like cowards, because it is the one place you could lie to defame people and not be sued. That is what this government is. That is what they are doing. And people actually, 130,000 people actually voted for that in local government election. Thankfully, 190,000 knew better, because the UNC and the NTA combined got 60,000 more votes than the PNM. So in other words, for every 5 people who voted, 3 voted for the UNC or the NTA. That is a major cut kill. 60,000 more, and that was a 30% voter turnout. In general election, when it's 60%, you do the maths, that is 120,000 difference you should get. And guess how much the PNM lost by in 2010? By 120,000 votes when they were annihilated 29-12. So to the PNM till you're dead, put that in your pipe and smoke it. It is coming.
Thank you so much, Captain Gary Griffith, leader of the NTA. Unity is strength, and strength is power. Thank you, my brother.